The first Imperial warship appeared over Earth at 3:17 Universal Time Coordinated, blotting out half the stars above the Pacific. No warning, no demand for surrender, no introduction, just silent, impossible sighs. Commander Eric Vale watched it through the cracked visor of his hard suit, boots planted on the ruined tarmac of Outpost Sierra. The winds howled across the Alaskan ice fields, carrying with them the distant echo of burning cities. The comm channels were chaos, screams, static, and the clipped voices of officers trying and failing to sound in control. The ship was so large it distorted gravity. Snow rose from the ground in spiraling white rivers, swirling toward the sky as if reality itself had been reversed. Eric didn't flinch. He'd seen worse. 3 wars, 6 continents, 2 colonies lost and retaken. People said he was indestructible, a ghost that refused to die. He wasn't a ghost. He was tired, bone-deep tired. But this was something new. Commander Vale, came a voice through the comm, strained and breathless. You seeing this? Eric didn't turn. He didn't need to. Lieutenant Mara Soul's boots crunched beside him. She was young, sharp, too brave for her age. Still believed humanity could win every fight. He once had, too. Yeah, Eric said. His voice was gravel. I see it. The Imperial ship was descending now, slow and deliberate, like a predator that knew nothing could challenge it. Beams of pale blue light scanned the surface, dissolving anything they touched. Trees, buildings, entire ridgelines. A mountain in the distance disintegrated into dust. Mara swallowed hard. What do they want? They want us crushed in a single strike. Eric kept his eyes fixed on the ship. But they're about to learn we don't break clean. A burst of static interrupted them, followed by the panicked voice of Central Command. All units, Global Priority 1. The Empire has engaged planetary suppression. Do not, repeat, do not attempt direct combat. Fall back to designated bunkers. Asterisk, asterisk. The transmission cut out with a sharp whine. Mara exhaled. They're telling us to hide. Eric finally turned toward her. Then we don't listen. He walked toward the outpost gates, boots heavy in the snow. Mara jogged after him. Sir, we can't hit that thing with anything we have. We're not trying to hit it. Eric opened the gate manually. The power was gone. We're trying to survive long enough to figure out what they're afraid of. You think the Empire fears something? Everyone fears something. He didn't add. Even gods bleed when you hit them in the right place. The sky erupted. A second ship broke atmosphere over Europe, and then a third above South America. More followed, each one a spear of metal kilometers long, with segmented armor that moved like muscle under living skin. The Empire wasn't invading. They were overwhelming, trying to end humanity before it could resist. Eric watched flashes on the horizon, orbital bombardments carving glowing wounds into the world. Earth shook beneath his feet like a dying animal. Mara spoke quietly, voice trembling. Is this how humanity ends? No, Eric tightened his jaw. This is how humanity starts fighting. A shuttle roared overhead, scavenged, patched together, barely flying, but it dropped low enough for the pilot to wave them inside. Eric climbed aboard, Mara right behind him, and the shuttle shot off across the frozen plains. The pilot, a scarred woman with cybernetic eyes, didn't waste time. Commander Vale, orders. Eric stared at the sky, at the ships, at the dying planet he had sworn to protect. Get us to Luna Base, he said. We're waking the weapons. The pilot hesitated. The buried ones? The ones older than every war we've fought, Eric said. The ones no one wanted to use. Mara's eyes widened. Sir, those things were sealed for a reason. Exactly, Eric replied. And that reason no longer matters. He strapped himself in. Tell every colony, outpost, and station still breathing. Humanity isn't surrendering. Not today. Not ever. The shuttle engines screamed as they climbed toward the stars, toward the Empire waiting above, toward the war humanity wasn't supposed to survive. The shuttle broke through the upper atmosphere just as a shockwave erupted behind them. Mara twisted in her seat to look out the rear viewport. A glowing blue beam carved through the tundra where they'd stood minutes earlier. Melting ice, vaporizing rock, leaving behind a crater kilometers wide. Close one, the pilot muttered. Not close enough to matter, Eric said. They're mapping our escape corridors. They'll adapt. Mara frowned. How do you know that? Because that's what I do. The pilot glanced at Eric through the cracked mirror above her console. That a soldier instinct talking, Commander, or something else? Eric didn't answer. He didn't have to. There was a reason Command kept him stationed at remote fronts. A reason every alien species that had faced him, pirates, warlords, breakaway colonies, had whispered about the human who never died. He carried scars no one else could survive, and secrets no one else could bear. He stared out the cockpit window as they ascended into the black. Space was supposed to be peaceful, silent, empty, cold. But orbit around Earth looked like a battlefield months after the war ended. Debris fields drifted lazily, broken satellites, burnt station modules, and the shattered remains of humanity's first attempt at an orbital defense ring. And above it all, the Empire's fleet. Hundreds of ships. Thousands. Their hulls shimmered with biometal plating, armor that pulsed faintly like breathing skin. Their engines moved like tendons, and their weapons were so advanced Eric couldn't even estimate their firing cycles. Mara whispered, "What are they?" The pilot crossed herself. "Nothing natural." Eric leaned forward. Zoom in on the flagship. The front viewport magnified until the largest ship filled their vision. It looked like a colossal spinal column with jagged ribs protruding outward, each rib ending in a weapon that could crack continents. He'd seen alien empires before, but not like this. "This isn't a conquering fleet," Eric murmured. "This is an extermination fleet." A piercing alarm ripped through the cockpit. Unidentified craft approaching Vector 317, the shuttle's AI blared. A small Imperial drone peeled off from the nearest ship and streaked toward them. It was fast, too fast, and its wings shifted shape mid-flight, morphing from thin fins to jagged blades. Mara grabbed hold of her harness. "Evasive." "Trying," the pilot snarled. The shuttle rolled hard, engines howling. The drone followed effortlessly. Eric unbuckled. Mara stared. "Sir, what are you doing?" He stepped to the weapons hatch, pulled it open, and reached inside. Metal clanged. He dragged out a long, heavy object wrapped in thermal cloth. "Can that ancient thing even fire?" Mara asked. Eric didn't answer. He kicked open the side hatch. Freezing vacuum ripped through the compartment, alarm screaming. "Close it," the pilot shouted. "Commander, close." Eric stepped into the doorway and aimed the weapon straight at the oncoming drone. The old rail launcher hummed, its capacitors charging with a low, hungry growl. The drone flashed across his vision, jaws opening like a metallic beast. Eric fired. A tungsten slug blasted out at hypersonic speed, slamming into the drone and tearing it in half. Sparks and biometal fluid spiraled into the void. Eric pulled back inside and sealed the hatch. Mara stared at him wide-eyed. "That was insane." "Effective," Eric corrected, setting the launcher down. "Insane is attacking Earth with a fleet like this." The pilot wiped sweat from her forehead. "We got maybe 4 minutes before they send 10 more of those bastards." "Then let's make them chase us to the moon," Eric said, "and hope they don't like what's buried there." The gray sphere of the moon came into view, scarred with ancient craters and dotted with humanity's quiet outposts, faint lights along the Terminator line. But one zone showed no lights, no structures, a dead region on maps, a forbidden region. Mara leaned forward. "Restricted Zone Theta." The pilot swallowed. "Command banned flights over it 30 years ago and buried it in paperwork," Eric said, pretended it never existed. His eyes narrowed. "But they knew one day we'd need it." Mara shivered. "What's actually down there?" Eric looked at her, expression hard. "Something we built after our first contact with alien life. Something Earth swore never to activate. And now we are." Eric stared at the moon, its surface growing larger and larger. "They want to wipe us out in one day," he said quietly. "So yes, we're waking the weapons." The shuttle angled toward the lunar surface. But the Empire had been watching. A massive cruiser turned toward them, engines glowing bright. Mara's face went pale. They know where we're going. Eric sat down, strapping in again. Good. The pilot blinked. Good. Because it means they're afraid of what we're about to unleash. The cruiser fired. The shuttle dove. The moon rushed up to meet them. And deep beneath its surface, something old and very human began to stir. The shuttle screamed through the thin lunar exosphere, heat shields glowing white despite the vacuum. The Imperial cruiser above kept firing, bright lances of blue energy cutting across the gray horizon, pulverizing ancient craters and sending plumes of dust erupting like volcanic ash. Impact in 3 seconds, the pilot shouted. Not if you lower us now. Eric barked. The pilot yanked the controls. The shuttle dropped like a stone, skimming just meters above the moon's surface. Static crackled across the windows from the frictionless debris storm trailing behind them. One of the beams slammed into the ground half a kilometer ahead. The explosion lifted a mountain's worth of rock. Mara sucked in a breath. They're carving the surface. No, Eric said. They're trying to stop us before we reach Theta. He leaned toward the pilot. Boost trough NAV ridge. Keep visuals low. The ridge is unstable, she warned. Eric's voice turned hard. So is Earth. The pilot gritted her teeth and dove into the jagged valley. A shadow swallowed them. Tall basalt cliffs towered on either side, blocking line of sight from the orbiting cruiser. At last, the bombardment stopped. Dust drifted down like ash after a nuclear winter. Mara unclenched her fists. They lost us. No, Eric said coldly. They're repositioning. The shuttle engines hummed softly as they followed the narrow canyon, weaving between sharp ridges and cracked plains. After 10 minutes, the terrain changed. The moon here was too smooth, too uniform. A faint grid pattern, almost invisible under layers of dust, stretched out in all directions. Mara frowned. Commander, this area's been flattened. Not flattened, Eric said. Covered. The pilot scanned the data. There's something beneath the surface. Huge, like a buried structure. Eric nodded once. We're here. The shuttle slowed to a hover. Below them, the faint grid lines began to glow a soft red, as if awakening. Mara exhaled a shaky breath. Sir, what is this place? Eric stared downward. Humanity's first answer to extinction. The ground trembled. Dust rose in thick clouds as hidden machinery deep beneath the lunar regolith began to move. Ancient pistons, seismic stabilizers, magnetic couplings older than the current United Earth government. The grid lines glowed brighter. Then they shifted, rotated. A massive circular platform, kilometers wide, rose from beneath the surface, shedding rock and soil as though shaking off sleep. Mara pressed a hand against the window. This shouldn't be possible. It shouldn't, Eric agreed softly. But humanity builds miracles when we're desperate. The platform locked into place with a deep, planetary thud. From its edges, tall structures erupted skyward, sleek black towers with red-lit seams. Power conduits, rail accelerators, defense pylons, and, at the very center, a dome, dark, silent, unbroken despite centuries underground. Mara swallowed. Is that the control core? No, Eric said. That's the cradle. He looked at the pilot. Land near the north pylon. She hesitated. Commander, are we sure waking this thing is a good idea? Eric unbuckled and stood. No. He picked up his rail launcher and slung it across his back. But it's the only idea that keeps humanity alive past today. They stepped onto the lunar surface, boots sinking slightly into the fine regolith. The airlock hissed behind them, then sealed. The silence was absolute, the kind only the moon could provide. Mara walked beside Eric, visor reflecting the glowing machinery around them. How did you know about this place? Eric kept moving. Theta was built before I was born. My father served here. I thought it was classified at the highest levels. It was... He stopped at the base of the pylon. He broke protocol, told me the truth. What truth? That humanity wasn't alone the first time we left the solar system. The pylon hummed, recognizing a human presence. Eric placed his gloved hand on the interface panel. ancient and cold. Red lights scanned his biometrics, flickering as if uncertain after decades of inactivity. Mara stood back. What's it doing? Eric didn't look away. Confirming lineage. Lineage? Why would it need? The pylon flashed green. A deep, mechanical voice echoed across the moon. Authorized genetic signature detected. Veil protocol engaged. Mara froze. Veil protocol? Sir, what did your family build? Eric's jaw tightened. My father didn't help build this weapon. He turned to her slowly. He helped design the command interface. Only a veil can wake it fully. Mara stared, speechless. Eric stepped back as the platform shuddered. The massive dome began splitting open, releasing a plume of trapped dust. A shape rose from within the cradle. Angular, towering, silent, buried for nearly a century. A war machine unlike anything humanity had dared to use. Mara whispered, "What is that?" Eric's voice was low. The first Guardian. The machine's eyes lit up, two burning red slits. It turned its head toward Eric, then spoke. Commander Eric Vale, the extinction threshold has been crossed. Do you require planetary retaliation? Mara's breath caught. Planetary retaliation. Eric stepped forward, face cold as stone. We're under attack by the Empire, he said. They intend to erase us. The Guardian's core glowed hotter. Then humanity shall not fall. It rose higher, towering over them like a god forged of steel. Awaiting your order, Commander. Above them, the Imperial cruiser reappeared, descending toward Theta Base. This time, it wasn't scanning. It was hunting. Eric stared up at it. Good, he murmured. I want them to come closer. He pointed at the sky. Guardian, prepare to fire. The machine obeyed, and the moon vibrated with the birth of a weapon no alien empire had ever witnessed. The moon trembled. Dust lifted in swirling clouds as the first Guardian completed its emergence. Its body an angular monolith of black alloy, its limbs thick with hydraulic muscle bundles that glowed from within like veins of magma. The Imperial cruiser descended fast, casting a wide shadow across the Theta platform. Its hull stretched for kilometers, bristling with weapons that shimmered with cold blue energy. A voice crackled through Mara's comm. Commander, they're charging their main cannon. Eric didn't look away from the horizon. Guardian, shield mode. The first Guardian sank low, plates shifting across its body like armor plates waking from centuries of sleep. A dome of red energy pulsed outward, anchoring itself into the pylons surrounding the cradle. Mara flinched as the shield shimmered. We have planetary-grade barrier emitters. Not planetary, Eric said. Imperial-grade. Mara blinked. I don't understand. How do we build something this powerful a century ago? We didn't. Eric's expression darkened. We adapted something we found. Before she could ask what, the sky detonated. The Imperial cruiser fired. A beam of blue annihilation erupted from its prow, thick as a skyscraper and long enough to bisect a continent. It carved through the lunar atmosphere, superheating dust, splitting the ground beneath it. The beam slammed into the Guardian's shield. The shockwave hit first. The entire platform shook violently, throwing Mara to her knees. The pilot tumbled sideways. Eric staggered but held his ground, bracing himself against one of the pylons. The shield blazed red, cracking, hissing, flickering with strain. Mara yelled over the comm. The barrier is destabilizing. Oh! Eric roared. The Guardian, kneeling at the dome, thrust its arms into the ground. Pulses of power radiated outward. The shield brightened, cracks knitting shut. But the beam kept coming, relentless, merciless. The Empire was determined to erase them. Eric, Mara shouted. We can't take much more. He did not answer. His mind was somewhere else, somewhere older, somewhere buried with his father's warnings and the truth he had never told anyone. If Earth ever sees them again, his father had said, *, you activate the Guardian. No hesitation, *. Eric clenched his teeth. Guardian, he commanded. Counterfire. Full charge. The Guardian stood, towering above them, its core swelling with crimson light. Acknowledged, it raised an arm, an ancient cannon unfolding from its forearm, like a blooming flower of death. Inside the cannon, a sphere of dark matter energy condensed, heavy enough to warp the air around it. Mara gasped. "Sir, that's a singularity weapon." "No," Eric corrected. "A singularity seed. A projectile." Her stomach dropped. "You're going to—" "Guardian," Eric said coldly. "Launch." The Guardian fired. The singularity seed screamed upward, a streak of red spiraling with black distortions trailing like smoke. It cut through the beam, tearing space-time as it passed. For a split second, the cruiser's weapon flickered, disrupted. Then the seed hit the cruiser's underside. There was no explosion. There was simply erasure. A sphere of nothingness expanded from the impact point, swallowing armor, decks, internal structures. The cruiser collapsed inward, metal shrieking in silent vacuum, entire sections imploding before bursting outward in glittering shards. Mara stared, slack-jawed. We destroyed a ship that big with one shot." Eric shook his head. "No, we merely wounded it." Indeed, the cruiser still twisted in the sky, trailing molten wreckage, limping but alive. Its weapons systems flickered back online. Mara stammered, "How is it still?" "Empire armor regenerates," Eric said. "Rapidly. They're built to take punishment until their targets give up." She looked at him. "But humans don't give up." Eric's eyes hardened. "That's why they want us gone." The wounded cruiser angled downward. And then something far worse happened. Its underside opened. Not for a weapon. For deployment pods. Mara felt her blood freeze. "Sir, those are troop carriers." Hundreds of black pods shot out, streaking toward the moon's surface. They slammed into the ground around the Theta platform with explosive force, embedding themselves like iron nails. One pod cracked open. A creature emerged, tall, armored in living metal, its limbs too long, its movements too precise. A single red eye glowed in a mask-like face. Mara whispered, "Imperial hunters." Eric lifted his launcher. "Guardian, ground defense protocol." The Guardian slammed its fists together. Plates unfolded across its arms, forming massive shields. "Protocol active." More pods slammed down, surrounding them. Mara stepped back. "There's too many." "No," Eric said. "There's just enough." The first wave of hunters broke into a sprint, silent, terrifying, fast. Eric fired the launcher. A hunter's head snapped back, skull exploding into metallic shards. The Guardian took 2 strides forward, each one shaking the lunar surface, and swept an arm through a group of hunters, crushing them into the dust. A hunter leaped onto the Guardian's leg, driving a blade into the armor. The Guardian grabbed it, crushed it like paper, and threw the remains across the crater. Mara fired her sidearm wildly. The hunters kept coming. The pilot shouted through the comm, "I can't hold them back." Eric fired again, and again, and again. Hunters fell, but more replaced them, like a tide of silent death. Mara gasped as one landed right in front of her. Its blade rose. Eric tackled it, slamming his boot onto its neck. He grabbed its arm, twisted, and used its own blade to sever its head. Mara breathed. "You saved my—" Eric grabbed her arm, pulling her up. "We're not done." She steadied herself. "Commander, there must be thousands of these things." "No," Eric said. "Tens of thousands." Her breath hitched. "What do we do?" Eric reloaded calmly. "We kill as many as it takes." Above them, the wounded cruiser ignited its engines and rotated to get behind the moon. Not retreating. Positioning. Mara's eyes widened. "Sir, they're calling reinforcements." Eric nodded once. "Good." He pointed to the sky as another Imperial ship emerged from behind the horizon, followed by 3 more. "Let them all come." The Guardian rose to full height, red core blazing. "They think they can bury us in a day," Eric said quietly. He aimed at the nearest hunter. "But they forgot what species we are." He pulled the trigger. "We don't break." The corridor outside the command deck flooded with emergency lights as Commander Rourke staggered through the smoke, supporting Lieutenant Vance with one arm. The ship trembled, an angry, metallic groan like something enormous was scraping claws along the hull. The Velthari warship was no longer observing. It was testing them, and humanity was failing. Rourke slapped the wall intercom. Engineering report. Static. Then a panicked voice. Commander, we've lost coolant regulation. Reactors overheating. If we can't stabilize. The intercom cut off in a burst of distortion. Not natural distortion. The noise was rhythmic, pulsing like a signal. They're jamming internal comms now, Vance said weakly. They're inside our systems. Rourke steadied his breathing. He wasn't afraid. Not yet. But the ship was dying, and everyone on board knew it. The ship jolted again. But this time, it wasn't a bombardment from outside. It was impact. Something had latched onto them. Rourke pushed Vance against a bulkhead. Stay here. Sir, that's an order. His boots pounded the deck as he ran. Ahead, he saw security teams rushing toward the port side hatches. Rifles charged, armor sealed, faces pale. He reached the front just as the first hatch buckled inward. Everyone froze. Something was forcing it open. Asterisk from outside. Asterisk. The metal screamed as claws, black, hooked, inhuman, peeled the hatch apart like paper. Positions. Rourke roared. Security formed a defensive wall behind portable shields. The hatch ripped open. A Velthari enforcer stepped through. It was enormous, 8 feet tall, plated in chitinous armor, its face a cluster of black eyes and mandibles dripping iridescent fluid. It moved with the cold precision of something bred for a single purpose: killing. The soldiers opened fire. Pulse rounds hammered the creature's chest and shoulders, but its carapace absorbed the impacts like rain. Only when someone scored a hit between the plates did it falter, hissing like a boiling kettle. More Velthari poured through the opening. 3, 6, 9. They moved like a scythe through wheat, cutting down barriers, slashing through shields, forcing the humans back step by bloody step. Rourke grabbed a fallen rifle and sprinted forward. Commander, someone yelled. He fired short, controlled bursts, targeting joints, breathing steady. Asterisk in out and out asterisk, as he aimed for the tiny weaknesses in their armor. 2 Velthari collapsed. A third turned toward him. It moved impossibly fast. Rourke barely rolled aside as a scythe-like limb smashed into the floor where he had been standing. He came up on one knee, firing point-blank. The round pierced the underside of its jaw. It dropped, but the others were adapting, coordinating, tightening into a formation that spelled death for every human in the bay. Fall back, Rourke shouted. We can't hold them here. Security retreated, dragging wounded behind them. The Velthari advanced. Rourke reached the central stairwell, just as Captain Yara emerged from above, coughing from smoke. Report, she demanded. We're being boarded, he answered. Portside Bay breached. Casualties heavy. An external bombardment, still ongoing. Her jaw tightened. Then this was always their plan. Cripple us. Crack us open. Take prisoners. Or specimens, Rourke muttered. She didn't disagree. The ship lurched violently, throwing both of them against the railing. Something ripped along the hull. Another boarding hook, or worse. Suddenly, the stairwell speakers lit with static. Bridge under attack, need. The message cut out with a scream. Yara drew her sidearm. Commander with me. Rourke followed her up the stairs. They reached the bridge to find the blast doors half-sealed. Half asterisk, because something had wedged them open. A Velthari warrior forced its bulk through the gap, mandibles flaring as it seized a crewman and flung him aside like a doll. Yara fired until her pistol overheated. Rourke didn't bother with finesse. He tackled the creature. It was like slamming into a wall of wet stone. The thing hissed, lifting him off the ground with its claws, but Rourke jammed his boot against its thorax, shoved himself free, grabbed a fallen carbine, and emptied it into the gaps between its throat plates. The warrior collapsed in a cloud of acidic smoke. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed the emergency override, slammed a fist into the control, and the blast door finally sealed shut. Yara exhaled shakily. We're losing control of the ship. We never had control. Then we can't win. Rourke lifted his head. No, he said. We can't win, but we can deny them victory. Her eyes widened. You're suggesting. Rourke nodded, toward the emergency evacuation sockets. Scuttle the ship. Save the data cores. Evacuate who we can. Yara digested this in grim silence. Finally, she whispered, "Do it." Moments later, Rourke broadcast to every remaining compartment. ***, all hands. Initiate evacuation protocol. This is not a drill. Abandon Shivaji station immediately. Scuttle teams to core. Everyone else to pods. ***. Screams and gunfire echoed in the background of the comm lines. Someone cried, "They're everywhere." Another, "Pod Bay 2 is gone." Rourke shut his eyes. He had given the right order, but it was going to haunt him. Rourke and a small squad fought their way down to the reactor spine, now glowing dangerously with unstable energy. Velthari drones clung to the ceiling, dropping down when they got close. The air tasted like burning metal and blood. The closer they got, the more the ship shook. Internal systems were collapsing. At the reactor vault, a lone engineer, Chief Ramos, was manually overriding the safeties. She looked up at Rourke, face streaked with ash. "Commander, about damn time." He approached. "How long until overload?" 3 minutes if I'm lucky. 1 if I'm not." Rourke nodded. "We'll hold the line." Ramos smirked tiredly. "You always say that." Suddenly the far wall burst open. Velthari drones spilled in like a living wave. The squad formed up. Rourke stepped in front. Blaster fire lit the chamber in strobes. Claws clashed against steel. The humans fell one by one, but they held the choke point long enough for Ramos to shout. "Override complete. Get out." Rourke didn't move. "Commander," she yelled. "Go." He fired again, reloading with shaking hands. "No," he said flatly. "I'm staying." Ramos froze. "You aren't serious. If we leave now, they'll stop the overload. Someone has to keep them back." A Velthari blade pierced his shoulder. He shot the attacker through the throat, ripping the blade out in a spray of blood. Ramos stared at him, horrified. "Rourke, get to the pods." "That's an order." Her face crumpled, not in fear but respect. Then she ran. Rourke stood alone. The Velthari advanced. He smiled bitterly through bloodied teeth. "You want specimens?" he growled. "Come get one." The reactor went critical. A blinding white flash consumed the Shivaji. The Velthari boarding hooks tore free in molten arcs as the ship vaporized from the inside out. The shockwave punched through space, scattering debris in a brilliant flare visible from orbit. The Velthari warship recoiled, shields flaring under the unexpected blast. They hadn't expected humans to destroy their own vessel. They hadn't expected a crew to fight until the last breath. And they hadn't expected Commander Elias Rourke. Those who survived in escape pods would later swear that, in a moment of the blast, they heard a final transmission, distorted but unmistakably human. Humanity doesn't break. The Velthari recorded the event, and so the first whispers began to spread through the galaxy. Fearful, awed, uncertain. The species that never surrenders. The escape pod tumbled through space, its stabilizers whining as they struggled to compensate for the shockwave. Lieutenant Vance coughed up smoke, smearing soot across his sleeve as he wiped his eyes. Alarms blared in a desperate chorus. Temperature critical. Oxygen low. Hull fracture. ***. He smacked the console. Yeah, I get it. We're screwed." He forced himself upright, clutching his ribs. The pod was packed. 14 people in a vessel meant for 8. Faces pale, uniforms burned, eyes wide with shock. Several were bleeding. No sign of Commander Rourke. Vance shut the thought out. He couldn't process that. Not yet. A young ensign whispered, Did the Shivaji really explode?" Vance swallowed hard. Self-destruct sequence detonated. It was our only chance. The ensign trembled. Then Commander Rourke. "Not now." Vance snapped, harsher than he intended. "Focus on staying alive." The pod's view panel flickered. Below them, Earth's upper atmosphere glowed in orange arcs where debris entered at hypersonic speed, flashes of fire marking the final moments of the Shivaji's remains. Above them, the Velthari warship drifted silently, studying, watching, not attacking. Why aren't they finishing us? Someone whispered. Vance stared at the alien vessel, its silhouette jagged, angles unnatural, as if grown rather than constructed. A cold realization crept up his spine. Because we interest them, Vance said, and surviving a ship's self-destruction, that just made us even more interesting. The pod jerked violently as a tractor beam locked onto it. No, 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 Vance muttered, clawing at the controls. Not them. Not now. A beam of shimmering violet light gripped the pod and dragged it toward the alien ship. Lights flickered. Several survivors began praying under their breath. Vance tried overriding the locks, manual, digital, even ripping out power circuits. Nothing worked. The ensign clung to his arm. Sir, what do we do? Vance stared at the Velthuri dreadnought growing larger in the window. We prepare to fight, he said quietly, even if it's pointless. The pod breached the alien hangar with a hiss of pressure equalization. The hatch blew open. Velthuri drones swarmed in, sleek, multi-limbed, their mandibles clicking with an eerie cadence. A soldier fired a pulse round. The drone dodged it effortlessly. Two more lunged, pinning the soldier to the floor. He screamed as they disarmed him, literally, before a venomous stinger silenced him. The survivors froze. Vance stepped forward slowly, hands raised. I'm the ranking officer, he said. Take me, let the others. A drone backhanded him across the face, knocking him to the deck. Its claws hovered inches from his throat. Then it paused. All drones froze simultaneously, as if listening to an unheard command. The clicking stopped. The drones withdrew. Footsteps echoed through the hangar. Slow, deliberate, impossibly heavy. Something taller than a human strode into view, accompanied by a shimmering cloud of holographic glyphs that floated around it like living data. A Velthuri overseer, twice as tall as the drones, its body plated in ornate armor that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins. It examined the humans with 6 black mirror eyes, lingering on Vance. Asterisk, asterisk, you survive much. Asterisk, asterisk. Its voice was a layered echo, translated through some kind of molecular resonance. Vance spat blood. Humanity's good at that. The overseer tilted its head. Asterisk, asterisk, one of your kind destroyed itself rather than kneel. Curious. Wasteful. Admirable. Asterisk, asterisk. Vance's heart pounded. They knew. They had recorded it. They were already forming opinions. Asterisk, asterisk, you will be studied. Asterisk, asterisk, the overseer said. Asterisk, asterisk, but you will also be honored. Asterisk, asterisk. The words sounded wrong, twisted, like an approximation of respect through an alien lens. The drones lifted the survivors and marched them deeper into the ship. Vance looked back at the hangar door, at the stars beyond it, and whispered the only thing he could. Rourke, please tell me you're still out there. 3 days later. Undisclosed Velthuri research vessel. Vance sat in a cell bathed in cold violet light, wrists bound by organic restraints that squirmed if he moved too quickly. Across from him, Ensign Mira sat curled up, hugging her knees. She whispered, Do you think anyone else escaped? Vance didn't answer. He wasn't sure. She tried again. What about Commander Rourke? Vance closed his eyes. Before he could respond, a chittering noise echoed through the corridor outside. 2 drones dragged in another human, half-conscious, bloodied, burned. A female voice screamed, Help him! A doctor rushed to the bars, gripping them until her knuckles went white. The drones released the man at Vance's cell. The doctor gasped, That's Chief Ramos. Vance surged forward, grabbing Ramos as she collapsed. Ramos! Ramos, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open. Vance, you stubborn. She coughed, wincing. Didn't think you'd survive that blast. We thought you died in the overload. Didn't stick around long enough. She managed a faint, pained smirk. Commander Rourke stayed to hold the line. Vance swallowed hard. He didn't make it. Ramos's eyes glistened, but she nodded. He knew the risk. The doctor whispered, We need to treat her injuries. The drones didn't stop them. Vance frowned. Why bring her here injured? They've never shown mercy. A chilling thought dawned. The Velthuri weren't being merciful. They were preserving data. Ramos coughed again. There's more. Before the drones grabbed me, I heard them talking, recording. Recording what? Mira asked. Ramos looked up, fear creeping into her voice. Legends, she whispered. They're already talking about us. About humans. Vance froze. Ramos continued, voice trembling. They're calling Rourke something. In their language, it roughly means... She swallowed. Asterisk, asterisk, the one who burns, but does not break. Asterisk, asterisk. The cell fell silent. Rourke had become a myth, an exaggeration spreading through Velthari ranks faster than any official report. Fear wrapped in fascination. Vance whispered, they're making stories about him. No, Ramos shook her head weakly. Stories about us. The lights shifted from violet to blood red. An alarm blared. The overseer's voice crackled over the ship-wide systems. Attention! A human distress signal has been detected in nearby space. Investigating. Prepare specimen units for observation. Every prisoner went still. Vance's heart hammered in his chest. A distress signal? From where? From who? Mira whispered, voice trembling with hope she didn't dare embrace. What if it's him? Vance stared at the cell door as the ship rumbled, changing course. For the first time since the Shivaji exploded, he felt something stir inside him. Not fear, not grief. Something sharp, something dangerous. Hope. Somewhere beyond Earth's orbit. Inside a fractured escape pod, drifting in silent darkness. A heartbeat. A gasp. A man jolted awake, choking on smoke as freezing air stabbed his lungs. He clawed at the restraints holding him in place, the world a blur of alarms and cracking metal. His head throbbed, his vision pulsed. A voice inside the failing pod repeated on a dying loop. Life support failure. Pilot vitals critical. Asterisk, asterisk. His name slowly surfaced from the pain. Rourke. Commander Elias Rourke. He blinked through blood and darkness until the world sharpened enough for him to see the cracked viewing window. Stars. And a distant glow. The shattered debris field of the Shivaji. He wasn't dead. Not yet. He coughed, spitting blackened soot onto his ruined flight harness. Ow! His voice was barely a rasp. How the hell am I still alive? His last memory was a wall of fire and Velthari claws closing in. He'd stayed behind to buy time for the crew. The reactor went critical. Nothing should have survived that. Yet, Rourke pressed a trembling hand to the console. The display flickered, barely functional. Escape Pod 14, critical damage. Auto-launch override engaged. Manual trigger. Unknown. Asterisk, asterisk. His brow furrowed. Someone had thrown him into this pod. Someone had launched it after the overload began. But who? There hadn't been anyone left in the reactor chamber. Unless... No. He pushed the thought aside. He didn't have the luxury of mysteries. Not now. He needed air. He needed power. He needed a beacon. His eyes locked onto the emergency transmitter. Its status light glowed red, meaning it was running on backup energy. Faint, weak, but active. He exhaled slowly. So that was the distress signal the Velthari picked up. Good. Let them come. Let them think they'd found another helpless human to dissect. He'd give them something else entirely. Rourke leaned forward, taped the barely working console, and whispered, Come find me. Velthari research vessel, specimen deck. Vance braced himself against the vibrating wall. The ship had shifted to maximum speed, something the Velthari never did lightly. Mira gripped the bars. They found the signal. Ramos groaned from her makeshift cot. Where they found bait. The red lights flickered, bathing the cell block in a fevered glow. Two drones scuttled down the corridor, mandibles clacking in a cadence that sent ice crawling along Vance's spine. Before anyone could speak, the overseer arrived, its silhouette framed by holographic sigils. You will remain silent. The voice reverberated through bone. The overseer paused at Vance's cell, its 6 eyes focusing with surgical precision. Asterisk, asterisk, another human has been detected. Alone, damaged, dying, yet refusing to perish. Curious behavior. Repeated behavior. Asterisk, asterisk. Vance's stomach twisted. Is it him? Mira whispered. The overseer responded before Vance could stop her. Asterisk, asterisk, the signal signature matches the one from your commander's armor. If he survived, he will be taken. If he resists, he will be corrected. Asterisk, asterisk. Vance stepped forward, grabbing the bars. You think you can correct Rourke? He blew up his own ship just to spite you. The drones hissed. The overseer leaned closer. Asterisk, asterisk, we do not fear him. We seek to understand why we should. Asterisk, asterisk. Then the lights changed from red to deep blue. A shift in phase. The ship was preparing a capture maneuver. The overseer glided away, drones following. Mira whispered for the first time, sounding terrified. If Rourke's alive, they're going to take him. Vance closed his eyes. No, he said. If he's alive. A grim smile crept across his bruised face. They're going to regret it. Rourke watched the Velthari dreadnought loom larger through the pod's window. He'd seen these ships before, titanic organic vessels grown around a living neural core. Predatory silhouettes wrapped in armor that shimmered with shifting patterns. Like deep-sea monsters forged for space. He could feel the gravity beam tug the pod sideways. They were reeling him in. The corpse of the Shivaji still glimmered faintly in the distance, fragments burning through atmosphere, raining down in incandescent streaks. He was supposed to be among them. He was supposed to be a memory. But humans were terrible at dying. Rourke smashed the emergency locker open, wincing as pain exploded across his side. He grabbed the one thing inside still usable. A flare pistol. Not a weapon. Not lethal, but bright. He slid it into his belt. The pod jolted hard as it entered the Velthari hangar. He heard claws scraping at the hull. The hatch was being forced open from outside. Rourke took a deep breath. Showtime. The hatch blew open. 3 drones crawled inside, mandibles flaring. Rourke fired the flare directly into the ceiling. The confined space lit up like a miniature sun. The drones reeled backward, screeching, their sensory membranes overloading. Rourke lunged past them, using his damaged harness as an improvised shield as he barreled into the hangar bay. He hit the floor hard. Pain lanced through his ribs. But he was alive. An arm, barely. He rose to his feet. The Velthari drones reoriented, their confusion turning into rage as they closed in around him. Rourke spat blood, squared his shoulders, and whispered to himself, "Burn, but don't break." Then he charged. The overseer watched the hangar feed. It expected a corpse. Instead, a lone human staggered into view, covered in burns, half-conscious, using a flare pistol like a torch while forcing 3 drones to retreat in confusion. Other drones converged. He fought them. He dodged, slipped, crawled, refused to fall. The overseer's aura flickered with something rare in Velthari neural spectra. Uncertainty. Research drones exchanged chittering bursts. The survivor matches Commander Elias Rourke's morphology. Impossible. His ship was annihilated. Observation. Humans exhibit anomalously high survival capabilities. Speculation. Humans weaponize refusal. The overseer stiffened. Weaponize refusal. The phrase made its neural filaments constrict. That was not behavior. That was strategy. It leaned closer to the feed. The drones finally swarmed Rourke, dragging him to the ground in a mass of limbs. But even pinned, bleeding, barely conscious, he laughed, quietly, defiantly, and the drones hesitated. The overseer's bioluminescent veins dimmed. Asterisk, asterisk, this human is dangerous. Capture him intact, and isolate his mind. Asterisk, asterisk. Hours later, specimen deck. Vance stirred at the sound of heavy footsteps. Drones dragged a limp figure down the corridor, body bruised, uniform shredded, face hidden beneath dried blood. Mira clapped a hand over her mouth. Ramos sat upright, eyes wide. Vance pressed against the bars. Let me see him. Let me see him. As the drones approached, the figure raised his head, just enough for the lights to catch his eyes. Cold, sharp, burning with a fire that refused to die. Vance's breath shuddered out of him. Commander, the drones hauled Rourke into the adjoining cell and sealed it. He sagged to the floor, but forced himself upright, gripping the bars between them. Vance, his voice was a ragged whisper. Glad you're not dead. Vance choked out a laugh. Likewise. Ramos exhaled shakily. We thought you were gone. Rourke wiped blood from his brow. So did I. Mira stepped closer. Commander, why did you come back? Why signal them? Rourke lifted his gaze to the corridor where the overseer waited, watching with unreadable intent. Didn't signal them, he murmured. I signaled you. Vance frowned. What? Rourke cracked a bloodied half-smile. Because... He leaned his head back against the wall, exhaustion finally pulling at him. The Shivaji wasn't the only thing that went down fighting. The overseer stepped closer to the cells, studying him. Rourke didn't look away, didn't flinch, didn't break. The overseer clicked softly. Asterisk, asterisk, you will tell us how you survived. We will learn your secret. We will understand your refusal. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke gave a hoarse laugh. You want to understand humans? He leaned forward, eyes burning. Then you'd better start with this. He curled his blood-streaked fingers into a fist and slammed it against the bars. Asterisk, asterisk, we don't die when we're told. Asterisk, asterisk. The overseer froze. Every drone went still. Mira whispered, Commander. Rourke didn't take his eyes off the alien. Your war just changed. Rourke awoke strapped upright against a vertical slab of alien alloy. Cold, pulsing faintly, like the wall itself was breathing. His wrists were bound by organic restraints that tightened when he flexed. His feet barely touched the floor. The chamber around him glowed in sickly shades of violet and indigo, its walls covered in shifting glyphs. A low, resonant hum thrummed through the air like a heartbeat or a countdown. Footsteps approached. The overseer glided into view, attended by two drones carrying translucent devices filled with drifting particles that moved as if alive. Asterisk, asterisk, Commander Elias Rourke. Designation, Anomaly. Trait, Refusal to perish. Outcome, Unpredictable. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke spat a clot of blood onto the floor. Glad to know I'm keeping you nervous. The overseer's mandibles clicked. Asterisk, asterisk, humans confuse survival with victory. But survival is merely a variable. We will extract your variables and remove what makes you dangerous. Asterisk, asterisk. A drone extended a limb tipped with a crystalline probe. Rourke braced. He didn't fear pain. He feared giving them nothing. The probe touched Rourke's temple. A surge of electricity tore through his skull, white-hot, blinding. His vision shattered into fragments. He couldn't breathe, couldn't move. A human would have screamed, but Rourke refused. The overseer monitored his neural patterns. Asterisk, asterisk, pain threshold, elevated. Emotional suppression, functional, incomplete. Cognitive resistance, escalating. Asterisk, asterisk. The drone increased voltage. Rourke's jaw tightened. His fingers twitched. His heart pounded against his ribs like it wanted to break free. The overseer observed. Asterisk, asterisk, you adapt quickly. Curious. What drives this escalation? Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke forced out a breath. Try harder. The probe intensified again. Rourke slammed his head forward, smashing the device out of the drone's limb. The drone staggered, synthetic fluid spraying. The restraints torqued, tightening painfully. But he didn't break. The overseer's voice dimmed. Your defiance is inefficient, yet potent. A second drone approached carrying a shimmering membrane, like a sheet of living glass. It attached the membrane to Rourke's forehead. Images erupted, Shivaji exploding, screams echoing, Vance shouting orders, Ramos crying out as flames closed in, his own hands forcing the override. The reactor glow swallowing everything. The probe wanted to steal his memories, wanted to map what made him refuse death, wanted to understand what humanity truly was. Rourke snarled, forcing his mind toward a different memory, a weaponized lie. He focused on silence. Void. Nothingness. The membrane flickered, glitching as it failed to retrieve anything meaningful. The overseer recoiled slightly. Asterisk, asterisk, human memory pathways, unstable, unpredictable, chaotic, asterisk, asterisk. Rourke growled through gritted teeth. Yeah, We call that trauma. The overseer gestured, and the chamber walls lit with holographic projections. Faces appeared. Mira, Ramos, Vance, soldiers from Shivaji, crewmen he'd lost, asterisk asterisk, alive, captured, suffering. The overseer's voice lowered to a cold echo. Asterisk asterisk observe. Your refusal has consequences. Your survival leads others to torment. Does this emotion weaken you or strengthen you? Asterisk asterisk. Rourke's blood went cold, then hot. His muscles trembled, straining against the restraints. Don't, he muttered. Don't show them. The overseer sharpened its voice. Asterisk asterisk, you are responsible. You destroyed your own ship. You abandoned them. Your defiance kills more than cooperation ever would. Guilt, fear, shame. We seek the one that breaks you. Asterisk asterisk. Rourke lifted his head, eyes burning with something primal. You won't break me. The overseer leaned in. Asterisk asterisk, we will learn. Even if we must unmake you to do so. Asterisk asterisk. Rourke bared his teeth. Good fucking luck. In the specimen block, Vance paced the floor with restless urgency. Every few minutes, he craned his neck toward the corridor, hoping, dreading, to hear footsteps. Mira sat quietly on her cot, watching the lights flicker. Ramos lay on her back, staring at the ceiling, hands folded over her chest. He's been gone too long, she whispered. They're doing something to him. Vance clenched his fists. Rourke can take it. Myra's voice quivered. But for how long? Vance turned to her. Look at me. She did. He held the line against a full Veltheri boarding party, Vance said. He held the reactor long enough to save us. He survived an explosion no one else could. Mira swallowed. So you think he'll come back? Vance hesitated, then nodded. He will. Ramos sighed. They're scared of him, you know, the way the drones act around him, like they're studying a predator. Vance blinked. Scared? Yeah, Ramos whispered. Scared. Back in the interrogation chamber, Rourke sagged against his restraints, chest heaving, sweat and blood dripping from bruised skin. The tests intensified. Memory extraction. Sensory overload. Pain thresholds pushed to the brink. But humanity's most dangerous trait was not strength, not biology, not intelligence. It was refusal. It was the decision to get back up, even when staying down meant survival. Rourke wasn't winning. He wasn't escaping, but he wasn't breaking either. The overseer watched him for a long, silent moment. Then, finally, asterisk asterisk commander, you are in error. A glitch. A contradiction in evolution. We do not understand you. And that terrifies us. Asterisk asterisk. Rourke lifted his cracked face toward the towering alien. Good. The overseer stepped back. The drones froze. Something unspoken, unnatural, hung in the chamber like static before a storm. For the first time since Rourke's capture, the overseer sounded uncertain. Asterisk asterisk, we will terminate this line of study. Not because you are uncooperative, but because your defiance spreads. It infects. It destabilizes. Your crew is changing. Your presence alters them. Your will rewrites them. Asterisk asterisk. Rourke smiled darkly. Welcome to humanity, asshole. The overseer's voice flickered between tones. Asterisk asterisk, you are dangerous. Not alone, but because you make others dangerous. We will isolate you, end your influence, and dissect the pieces, asterisk asterisk. Rourke tensed. The restraints tightened. The drones approached. Execution. Disassembly. This was it. Until a deep alarm blasted through the ship. Red lights flooded the chamber. Asterisk asterisk. The overseer turned sharply. Asterisk asterisk intrusion. External threat detected. Defensive units deploy. Asterisk asterisk. Rourke forced a weak laugh. Looks like someone pissed off the wrong species. The overseer hissed and retreated, drones clustering defensively as the chamber vibrated from a distant impact. Rourke exhaled slowly. Vance, tell me that's you. The alarms didn't just wail, they screamed. Red lights bathed every corridor of the Veltheri research vessel, pulsing in time with the hum of overdriven engines. Somewhere in the distance, structural groans echoed. a sound that spoke of failing supports and imminent collapse. Rourke's restraints sparked, pulsing as the organic clamps struggled against the vibrations of the ship. He gritted his teeth. This wasn't luck, it was timing. From deep within the hull, muffled explosions shook the walls. "They're attacking?" Rourke muttered through a dry throat. His hands flexed, straining against the alien bindings. "Yes," a voice answered, from a corner where drones had been studying his cell. The sound was distorted, almost synthesized, yet unmistakably human. "Vance, you survived," Rourke rasped. "How?" "Barely." Vance interrupted. "Pods distracted them, ships breaking off. We're boarding." Rourke's eyes flicked to the doorway. The Overseer's drones were clustering at the threshold, defensive, confused. Something big had arrived, something the aliens hadn't anticipated. "Good," Rourke whispered. "Let's make them regret it." The wall to Rourke's cell shuddered violently, then exploded inward in a shower of sparks and twisted alloy. Vance and Ramos charged in, weapons raised, as Rourke twisted free from his damaged restraints. Pain lanced across his torso, but he ignored it. Every second counted. "Go!" Rourke barked. The drones lunged, mandibles snapping. Rourke spun, elbowing one squarely in the chest, smashing it against the wall. Sparks sprayed like fireflies. Vance fired blindly, felling two more before a drone leaped toward him. Rourke caught it mid-air, slamming it down with a horrifying crack that echoed through the chamber. "Move!" he shouted. "To the hangar!" Ramos and Mira followed, weaving through the chaos. Rourke fell in a stride behind them, bloodied, battered, but undeniably alive and undeniably dangerous. They reached the hangar to find a nightmare of fire and debris. Several Velthari assault pods had deployed, some burning, some hovering, others already ripped apart by incoming fire from unseen attackers. "Vance the ship," Rourke growled. "We need pods." Vance scanned the wreckage. Two intact, maybe three, but we're not leaving anyone behind. Ramos shook her head. "Commander, the drones are swarming." Rourke smirked through blood. "Good. Let them taste human desperation." He charged, fists and boots swinging, clearing a path through the approaching swarm. The floor shook with every impact, sparks and molten metal spraying as the humans forced their way toward the pods. Mira stumbled, and Rourke caught her arm mid-fall. "Not today," he hissed. At the edge of the hangar, two Velthari enforcers dropped from the ceiling, enormous figures with bioluminescent veins and jagged claws. Rourke met them head-on. He grabbed the first, twisting it into a pod wall and slamming it to the floor, knocking out half its teeth. The second leaped onto him, but Rourke elbowed upward into its jaw, driving it back. Vance grabbed the nearest pod. "Hurry!" Rourke and Ramos followed, dragging Mira with them. The escape pod shuddered violently as Vance activated the engines. Sparks erupted from damaged circuits, but the vessel began to lift. "Hang on!" Vance yelled. The hangar erupted in a storm of plasma fire and Velthari drones. Rourke braced against the hull, watching the floor erupt beneath them. "You think that's all?" he muttered, smirking despite the pain. Above them, the Overseer observed from a suspended balcony. Its mandibles clicked rapidly. Asterisk, asterisk, they escape. Again, asterisk, asterisk. The drones surged forward, but the pod's engines fired with a brutal, guttural roar. The vessel tore free, scraping past the wreckage as Velthari weapons discharged in furious bursts. Rourke hung onto the side console. "Tell me you got the NAV ready." Vance slammed the navigation panel. "Yes." "Destination. Human rendezvous coordinates." "Buckle the hell up." The pod blasted through the hangar doors, hull groaning as plasma streaks licked the metal outside. The Overseer's voice came over an intercom, distorted and furious. Asterisk, asterisk, stop them. Do not allow the anomaly to escape. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke laughed, faint but feral. They should have thought of that before they made humans the species that never surrenders. The pod lurched into open space, shaking violently under acceleration. Debris from a Velthari ship burned in tiny streaks of light behind them. Vance gritted his teeth. "We can't outrun them forever. They're faster." Rourke straightened, eyes sharp. We're not outrunning them. We're fighting them. He reached to the flare launcher strapped to his belt. Course correction, Vance. Aim for their blind spot near the core junction. Vance's eyes widened. You can do that. Rourke smirked. I don't plan on surviving if we just run. The pod hurtled toward the dreadnought's core, weaving through debris and laser fire. Inside the Veltheri vessel, the Overseer's 6 eyes flared. Asterisk, asterisk, they're predictable, yet still dangerous. Engage the countermeasures. Asterisk, asterisk. A massive pulse cannon rotated to track the pod. Energy crackled, building to a destructive crescendo. Rourke tightened his grip. Hold on. Time to remind them why humans aren't easy to kill. The flare fired. A red streak against the void. It hit the cannon's targeting sensors directly. Sparks, smoke, and a violent shudder rocked the dreadnought. Vance shouted, "It worked!" Rourke grinned through blood. It always works when you aim the right thing. The pod twisted away, engines burning as they used the distraction to escape. The dreadnought erupted in a cascade of alarms, lights flickering as its systems struggled to compensate. Vance laughed, half in disbelief, half in relief. Ramos clutched the side of the pod. I can't believe we're alive. Rourke leaned back, bruised, battered, but alive. Eyes cold, voice steady. Alive, yes. But the fight? It's just beginning. In the distance, the Veltheri dreadnought recalibrated. Its gaze was set. Its hatred was burning. And the humans were already running their story across the stars. The escape pod emerged from the wreckage of the Veltheri research vessel, drifting through the remains of what had once been the Shivaji's orbiting debris field. Smoke and molten metal streaked across the void like dying stars. Vance pressed his hands against the console, trying to calm the trembling vessel. We made it somehow. Rourke sat opposite him, silent, head cocked as he scanned the stars. His armor was scorched, blood dried on his face, but his eyes burned with the same unyielding fire. Myra's voice broke the silence. Where do we go now? The Shivaji is gone. The colonies are scattered, and the Veltheri are hunting us, Rourke finished. I know, but hiding isn't a choice. Not anymore. Ramos, still tending to her wounds, looked up. So what's the plan? We don't have a fleet, a station, or reinforcements. Just us and a bunch of burned-out pods. Rourke's lips curled into a faint, grim smile. We've got the one thing they don't understand. Vance raised an eyebrow. And what's that? Asterisk, asterisk, humans don't quit. Asterisk, asterisk, that's why they'll underestimate us, and why we'll survive long enough to fight back. Vance tapped the navigation console. There's a relay near the Typhon expanse. Rogue colonies use it as a communications hub. If anyone's still alive, we can reach them there. Rourke's gaze sharpened. Good. We send a signal. But not just a distress call, something bigger. Mira frowned. Bigger than a distress call? Yes, Rourke said, leaning forward. We're not asking for help. We're sending a warning. Tell the galaxy there's a species that refuses to break, no matter what. That the Veltheri may control fleets, tech, even entire star systems, but they don't control humans. Ramos blinked. You want to turn a few colonies into a rallying cry, while the enemy is chasing us. Rourke's expression hardened. Exactly. Hours later, the pod drifted into position near the Typhon relay. The system was archaic, jury-rigged by colonists who had fled the first wave of Veltheri attacks. Vance prepared the transmitter, fingers flying across consoles. We can boost this signal across nearby systems, but we'll be broadcasting in the open. They'll know exactly where we are. Rourke nodded. Fine. They'll come. Let them. We're not running anymore. The relay hummed to life. Screens flickered with static as the pod's makeshift transmitter began sending a high-powered burst. Rourke's voice, tired but fierce, filled the signal. Asterisk, asterisk, to any human listening, we survived. The Shivaji fell, but humanity endures. The Veltheri hunt us, but we are not weak. If you hear this, gather your ships. Gather your weapons. Do not wait for permission. The galaxy underestimates us, let them. We're the species that does not surrender. We fight. We endure. We rise. Join us. Asterisk, asterisk. The transmission echoed across the void, bouncing from relay to relay. It carried not just words, but hope, defiance, and a warning. Back in the cells aboard the Velthary vessel, Vance and Mira watched as Rourke's voice broadcast across interstellar frequencies. Drones paused mid-step, sensing something strange, an emotional resonance they didn't understand. Is he insane? Mira asked. Vance shook his head. No, he's human. And humans are dangerous when they refuse to die quietly. Across the stars, distant colonies received the transmission. Rogue fleets that had been hiding, waiting for orders, stirred. Commanders whispered in corridors and cramped cockpits. He's alive. He's calling us. They're calling us. It didn't matter that the colonies were small, scattered, under-equipped. Rourke's words mattered. For the first time since the Shivaji's destruction, hope ignited. In a dimly lit command hub aboard a station orbiting Typhon V, rogue captains and strategists crowded around the relay. Communications scrambled with Rourke's signal. Captain Alara Trask, veteran of the last colony skirmish, slammed a fist on the table. Did you hear him? He survived the Shivaji, and he's telling us to stand up. Her second-in-command, Jalen Vire, shook his head. He's asking us to risk everything against the Velthary. We barely survived last time. Alara's eyes burned. Then that's exactly why we can't wait. We have no choice but to fight. If humans give up, we die. If humans rise, maybe we survive. Across multiple star systems, transmissions bounced back and forth. Rourke survived. Rally. Strike. Resist. The seeds of a new human alliance had been planted. The Velthary watched in confusion and growing alarm. Their long-standing superiority in firepower, intelligence, and strategy was built on one assumption. Humanity was a minor, chaotic species that could be crushed like any other. Rourke's broadcast shattered that assumption. The Overseer's voice crackled through the pod's intercepted channels. Asterisk, asterisk, they organize faster than anticipated. They spread faster than predicted. This behavior is contagious. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke's smirk was visible even through the small viewport of the pod. He leaned back, bruised and exhausted. Good, he whispered. Let them learn fear the human way. The pod disengaged from the Typhon relay, engines burning. Rourke looked at the crew, their faces drawn but resolute. Vance grinned, voice hoarse. So what now? Rourke's eyes swept across the stars, burning with defiance. Now, we rally every human outpost, every hidden ship, every survivor. We rebuild, we strike, and we make sure the Velthary remember that humans don't surrender. Ever. Asterisk, asterisk. Mira nodded slowly, determination replacing fear. Then we fight. Ramos exhaled, pain forgotten for a moment. For Rourke. Rourke's laugh was low and bitter. No, not for me. For all of us. Humanity. Asterisk, asterisk. And if they want war, let them come. We're ready. Above them, stars stretched into infinity. Among them, humans burned brighter than the Velthary had ever anticipated. The first spark of rebellion had become a flame across the galaxy. The scattered human colonies were waking up. Small freighters, retrofit cargo ships, and smuggler vessels, once hidden and isolated, now moved toward rendezvous points, responding to Rourke's broadcast. In orbit above the mining colony of Erithos Prime, a ragtag armada had gathered, 30 ships at most, poorly armed by interstellar standards, but full of people who refused to die quietly. Rourke stood on the bridge of the largest vessel, a heavily modified freighter called the Phoenix's Ashes. His armor was battered, face scarred, and one eye swelled shut, but his presence radiated authority. Vance leaned over the tactical console. We don't even have 100 ships. How do we take on a Velthary cruiser? Rourke's grin was feral. We're not taking it head-on. Not yet. The first strike isn't about destruction. It's about sending a message. Mira frowned. A message? If we fail, we all die. Rourke's gaze was sharp. Exactly. And if we succeed, the galaxy remembers humans never surrender. Ramos approached, scanning the fleet. We have ships from 5 colonies, scrap tech, jury-rig weapons, and a lot of desperate people. Rourke nodded. Good. That's exactly what we need. Desperation makes humans dangerous. Sensors flickered on the tactical display. A Velthari patrol ship, heavily armed, but small compared to the main dreadnought, was moving near a supply convoy in the Sedna expanse. Rourke leaned over the console. They think they can bully isolated colonies. They're wrong. We hit now. Vance hesitated. It's suicide. A single cruiser. Well, more than a single, it's got shields, weapons, and drones. Rourke slammed a fist on the console. Sparks flew. That's why we strike fast and unpredictable. Every Velthari has an expectation. Humans run. Humans hide. We don't. Not anymore. Not ever. Mira swallowed. And the colonies? They watch, Rourke said. They see this strike. And they'll know humans fight back. Then the real uprising begins. The human fleet approached the patrol cruiser, cloaked behind an asteroid field. Rourke's plan was simple. Hit the sensors first, confuse their systems, and use guerrilla tactics in space, a field humans had mastered against Velthari boarding parties before. Vance keyed the communications. Fleet, remember, strike and retreat. We're not here to win yet, just to survive, and to show them humans are here to stay. Rourke activated the pod's modified EMP payload. Let's make some noise. The first salvo fired, disabling the cruiser's targeting arrays. Missiles streaked through the void, targeting its engines. Drones scrambled, but the human ships were everywhere, slashing through blind spots, striking where the Velthari didn't expect. From the bridge of the Phoenix's ashes, Rourke watched the chaos unfold. That's it. Hit them where it hurts. Show them humans are more than they imagine. Inside the Velthari cruiser, alarms blared. The drones surged to defend, but every movement was anticipated, every blind spot exploited. The overseer's voice crackled across the comm channels, distorted with fury. Asterisk, asterisk, what is this? Anomalous behavior, unpredictable. Human tactics, escalating, asterisk, asterisk. Rourke's grin widened. They're calling me an anomaly. Good. Let's be anomalies together. Another salvo of torpedoes disabled the cruiser's main power relay. Sparks flew through corridors, alarms merging into a symphony of panic. The human fleet was retreating, but their strike had succeeded. The cruiser was damaged. Its patrol was neutralized, and the legend of the humans' defiance spread farther than any propaganda could. Rourke activated the relay in real time, sending a broadcast across nearby systems. Asterisk, asterisk, humans fight back. The Velthari will learn this not by destruction, but by survival. Any colony listening, we strike where you think it impossible. Gather. Resist. Endure. Humanity does not surrender. Asterisk, asterisk. Ramos and Mira exchanged glances. We actually did it, Mira whispered. Vance shook his head, incredulous. We survived a fleet ambush, and we actually won. Rourke's voice was low, confident, and dangerous. No, we didn't win. Not yet. We sent a warning. And now, the galaxy starts to listen. Colonies across the Sedna expanse receive the broadcast. Rogue commanders glanced at each other in silent agreement. Smugglers, miners, and small freighters, hidden for years, activated weapons and raised shields. They're ready to fight, one whispered. They've seen what humans can do, another said. And somewhere in the void, the Velthari dreadnought monitored the battle feed, its 6 eyes narrowing. The overseer's bioluminescent veins flickered. Asterisk, asterisk, humans are evolving. Not biologically, but psychologically. Their refusal spreads. This must be contained. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke, aboard the Phoenix's ashes, smiled through a haze of blood and smoke. Let them try, he whispered. They'll see why humans never surrender. The fleet limped back to Typhon Expanse rendezvous points. Ships were battered, shields cracked, and engines faltering. Yet, every captain knew one truth. They had fought back. They had survived. Rourke addressed the fleet. This is only the beginning. The Velthari expected us to cower, to hide, to die quietly. We didn't. We won a battle, not the war. And every human who sees this will rise. Every colony will know resistance is possible, survival is inevitable, and humanity will endure. The fleet erupted in cheers, weapons firing in celebration. Vance leaned toward Rourke, voice low. "Sir, the next step?" Rourke's eyes burned into the void ahead. Asterisk, asterisk, the war begins now, and will show the galaxy why humans do not surrender. Asterisk, asterisk. Above them, the stars stretched into infinity. Among them, a human spark had become a wildfire. The silence of deep space shattered like glass. Sensors across the human fleet flickered, overloaded by an approaching shadow. "Command, you need to see this," Vance said, pointing to the tactical display. Rourke leaned over. His stomach sank into a pit of cold steel. A Velthari dreadnought, the flagship of the regional fleet, was bearing down on the Typhon Expanse rendezvous point. It was massive, grown organically over decades, shimmering with a biometallic surface that flexed like living armor. Myra's eyes widened. "They're here for us." Rourke didn't flinch. "Good. Let's see how badly they underestimated humans." Vance shook his head. "We can't take that head on. They'll annihilate us." Rourke's voice was cold and precise. "We won't fight their rules. Humans don't fight their rules. We fight theirs and ours." Across the fleet, human crews scrambled. Jury-rigged weapons were powered, shields diverted to maximum output, and escape pods readied for contingencies. Rourke moved among the ships, checking with commanders. His presence was a spark. Morale surged with every word. "Listen," he said, eyes scanning the fleet. "This is the first time they've seen what we're capable of. We're not trying to destroy them. Not yet. We're showing the galaxy, and them, that humans don't surrender. Use every trick, every blind spot. And if anyone survives, it's because you're human. Fight smart. Fight together." Vance adjusted targeting arrays. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and outarmored. But I think we can do this." Rourke's grin was sharp. "Exactly. Let's remind them why they feared us in the first place." The Velthari dreadnought loomed over the human fleet, releasing a pulse that sent communications into chaos. The massive energy wave rattled hulls, short-circuiting shields on half the smaller ships. The first volleys of Velthari plasma tore through the void, ripping apart a cargo vessel turned warship. Fires erupted across its decks. "Brace!" Rourke yelled aboard the Phoenix's ashes. The crew ducked as the bridge shook. Sparks flew. Warning sirens screamed. Vance's hands moved frantically over the console. "We're taking losses already. Shields won't hold." "Shut up," Rourke barked. Asterisk, asterisk, do your job. Asterisk, asterisk, focus on their blind spots." Rourke's plan relied on speed and chaos. Smaller human ships darted through the dreadnought's massive legs, using the asteroid belt as cover. EMP charges, flares, and sabotage pods tore into the cruiser's engines and sensor arrays. Ramos fired improvised railguns from the bridge, cutting drones in half. Mira used hacked drones to jam enemy targeting systems. Rourke's strategy was simple. Hit hard, vanish, repeat. Vance yelled over the comms. "They can't predict us. Every attack is different." Rourke nodded grimly. "Good. Make them afraid of unpredictability. Make them afraid of humans." The dreadnought's central core reacted, releasing a shockwave that disabled half the fleet's propulsion systems. Ships spun helplessly in space as energy tendrils lashed out. Mira screamed as a nearby ship exploded. "We're going to." "Not yet," Rourke growled. He slammed a fist into the console, rerouting all power to propulsion and shields. Sparks flew, systems groaning under the strain. "Every human ship is a weapon," Rourke shouted. "Use it. Don't die for them. Make them die for underestimating you." The fleet adapted quickly, using their agility to slip through the dreadnought's grasp. Small victories erupted across the battlefield as human ingenuity began to overcome raw alien strength. Rourke's pod slipped close to the dreadnought's hull. He aimed a modified torpedo at a critical biometal junction, one that controlled drone deployment. "Here's the fun part," he whispered. The torpedo fired, embedding in the hull. Seconds later, it detonated, ripping open a gash in the dreadnought's side. Drones scrambled, systems malfunctioned, and the massive ship faltered in its attack. Vance cheered. "We did it. We actually did it." Rourke didn't smile. "No, we started it. This is just the beginning. They'll be back, and stronger. But they've seen what humans can do. And that changes everything." The surviving human fleet regrouped in orbit around Typhon V. Damage was extensive, but the message had been sent. Humans fight back, and they do so relentlessly. Ramos wiped blood from her face, voice trembling. We actually survived the dreadnought." Mira nodded, eyes wide. "And we sent a message they'll never forget." Rourke's gaze swept across the fleet, his voice low but full of conviction. "Every human colony out there, they're going to see this and rise. Every Veltheri fleet, they're going to think twice before striking again. And the galaxy? They're starting to remember. Humans never surrender." Vance glanced at him. "What now?" Rourke's eyes burned as he looked to the stars. "Now, we prepare for the war they'll bring, and make sure every one of them learns why humans are the nightmare they never expected." The human fleet had been battered but not broken. In orbit above Typhon V, commanders from every scattered colony gathered aboard the Phoenix's Ashes, Rourke's flagship. Rourke addressed them, voice carrying authority honed from decades of impossible battles. "Listen up. The Veltheri think they've seen what humans can do. They haven't. They think fear will make us bend, die quietly. They're wrong. Every colony, every ship, every human who survives is a weapon. And today we strike back, not to hide, not to beg, but to take the fight to them." The commanders exchanged glances, nodding. Some were hesitant, others were ready. Every face reflected the same hardened truth. The humans who had survived the Veltheri would never surrender. Vance leaned over the tactical console. "We've got data from our last strike. If we hit multiple Veltheri supply, convoys, and communication relays simultaneously, we can cripple their patrol network long enough to strike at larger ships." Rourke's grin was sharp. "Then we do exactly that. We don't wait. We fight smart, fast, and hard. Show them humans aren't just survivors. Show them we never surrender." The fleet dispersed, smaller groups targeting multiple Veltheri convoys across the expanse. Improvised torpedoes, EMP pods, and salvaged railguns became their arsenal. Mira worked with engineers to modify drones captured in previous skirmishes. "We can turn some against their own fleet," she said, eyes alight. Ramos checked weapon calibrations. "If we do this right, we hit them from multiple angles at once. Confuse them. Make them overcommit. Make them bleed before they even know who we are." Rourke nodded. "Exactly. Fear and unpredictability. The two things the Veltheri haven't learned from humanity yet." The first convoy, a string of Veltheri cargo ships and drones, moved slowly through a dense asteroid field. Human fighters darted from behind rocks and debris, barely visible until they struck. Vance's voice came over comms. "Here goes nothing." EMP charges detonated, sending drones into confusion. Torpedoes ripped through engines. Rourke's own pod dove close to the largest cargo ship, firing concentrated blasts at its weapon systems. The convoy disintegrated faster than the Veltheri anticipated. Ships erupted in plasma fire. The remaining drones fled in disarray. Ramos shouted over the noise. They didn't expect us to strike first and strike hard. Rourke's grin was grim. "Good. Let them fear the human factor." While the fleet moved, Rourke broadcast a message to all colonies within range. Asterisk, asterisk, humans fight. We fight together. We fight not to survive, but to show the galaxy the species that refuses to surrender is the one that lives on. Join us. Rise with us, and strike where they think we cannot. Humanity is awake. Humanity strikes back. Asterisk, asterisk. Every system that received the message stirred. Smugglers, miners, and hidden fleets powered up. They raised shields, armed weapons, and set course toward Typhon V. The human fleet, small but fierce, became a spark in the dark, igniting hope and resistance across the scattered colonies. The Veltheri were furious. Their patrols have been annihilated, their convoys crippled, and their communication relays disrupted. The Overseer's voice crackled across captured comm channels. Asterisk, asterisk, humans organize. Humans attack. Humans are anomalous, contagious, dangerous. They must be eliminated. All units converge. Terminate. Suppress. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke's eyes narrowed. Let them come. Every fleet they send, every dreadnought, they'll learn the hard way humans fight together. Vance asked quietly, "Do you think we could take on their main fleet?" Rourke's grin returned, feral. "We don't need to destroy it yet, but we will teach them fear. And fear spreads faster than ships." The human fleet split into coordinated strike teams, hitting convoys, supply lines, and isolated Velthari outposts. Guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and improvised weapons devastated Velthari operations. Every success emboldened the fleet. Every victory spread like wildfire to hidden colonies. Myra's voice came over the comms. "Commander, they're responding faster than we planned. More colonies are joining. Even systems we didn't expect." Rourke leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning the stars. "Good. Let the galaxy see humans are unstoppable when cornered. We'll hit them harder tomorrow, and the day after." Across Typhon V, ships and crews worked tirelessly. Repairs, refits, and weapon calibrations went hand in hand with training and strategy. Every human crew that joined the fight strengthened the alliance. Rourke's voice, broadcast to all present ships, echoed across the fleet. Asterisk, asterisk, the Velthari think they can crush us. They think we're weak. They are wrong. Every ship here, every human alive today, is proof. Proof that the species that never surrenders will not be conquered. We fight. We endure. We strike. And we rise. Humanity has awoken. And the galaxy will remember. Asterisk, asterisk. The fleet erupted in cheers. Shields flared. Weapons fired in salute. From the void, distant Velthari dreadnoughts observed the growing human rebellion, their dread spreading. Rourke's eyes gleamed. They've learned fear. Now, let's make them respect it. The war had shifted. Humanity was no longer hiding. Humanity was fighting back, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Velthari fleet had amassed in the Ixion sector a Dead Star system chosen for its strategic choke points. Hundreds of dreadnoughts, cruisers, and drone swarms glimmered like a living fortress. Their formation was nearly perfect, calculated, precise, and terrifying. Rourke's human fleet, by comparison, was ragged, battered, and far smaller. But every ship was filled with humans who had survived, who had endured, and who had learned to fight smarter, faster, and harder than any enemy could predict. Rourke stood on the bridge of the Phoenix's ashes, surveying the stars. "This is it," he said. "The Velthari think they can crush us with numbers. They think fear will make us bend. They're about to learn what humans are really capable of." Vance leaned over, eyes scanning the tactical displays. "Sir, the odds are insane. Hundreds of ships against, what, 40? Rourke smirked, bloodied but unbowed. 40? Maybe. But humans don't fight in numbers alone. We fight with chaos, courage, and refusal. Every Velthari that thinks it's predictable will learn too late." Rourke outlined the plan. Small strike teams would infiltrate the Velthari formation, targeting the Dreadnought's command cores, communication relays, and drone hubs. The rest of the fleet would act as bait, drawing the enemy into traps, minefields, and ambush points. Myra's voice was tense. "Commander, this is suicidal. If we fail, everything ends here." Rourke's eyes met hers, cold and resolute. "And if we succeed, the galaxy sees humans as the species that never surrenders. We don't hide. We don't beg. We don't yield. We fight. And we win, or we die standing." Ramos adjusted her railgun. "Then let's make them remember us. Let's make them fear humans." Vance exhaled. "Then let's strike." The human fleet surged forward, engines burning through the void. The Velthari opened fire, plasma bolts slicing through space, ripping apart smaller ships and shields alike. Rourke barked orders, every command precise, every movement calculated chaos. Human fighters darted between Velthari lines, lobbing EMP charges, torpedoes, and hacking drones. The dreadnought's drones swarmed toward the human fleet, but Rourke's teams had anticipated this. Minefields, debris, and surprise attacks shredded the waves of drones before they could reach the humans. Vance shouted over the comms. "They can't anticipate us. We're everywhere and nowhere at the same time." Rourke's grin was feral. "Exactly. Humans fight the impossible and make it look like victory is inevitable." Rourke led a strike pod directly to the Velthari dreadnought's core. The pod dove past heavy fire, twisting and dodging as missiles exploded around them. Inside the dreadnought, the Overseer's 6 eyes widened in shock. Asterisk, asterisk, they predict. They adapt. This is impossible. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke's pod fired precision torpedoes at the core junctions, controlling drone deployment and energy distribution. The dreadnought shuddered violently, sparks and plasma bursting from its hull. "Now, Vance!" Rourke yelled. Vance fired the synchronized volleys across the fleet, striking the crippled dreadnought from multiple angles. The massive ship trembled under the concentrated assault. The dreadnought attempted a counterattack, unleashing waves of plasma and drone swarms. Human ships were hit, some destroyed, but the Velthari underestimated one critical factor. Humans never surrender. Rourke's pod dove inside the shattered corridors of the dreadnought, moving toward the central chamber. Sparks rained down, fires raged, and the screams of Velthari drones echoed through the metal hull. The Overseer awaited, looming over the command chamber. Mandibles clicked in menace. Asterisk, asterisk, human. Anomaly. You cannot survive this. Asterisk, asterisk. Rourke stepped forward, bloodied and scarred, voice low and resolute. You already know, humans don't surrender. And you're about to learn why. With a coordinated strike, Rourke and his team overloaded the dreadnought's core systems. Energy cascaded uncontrollably, tearing the dreadnought from the inside. The vessel erupted in a cataclysm of fire and plasma. Drones and ships were tossed like toys in space. The surviving human fleet regrouped, battered but victorious. Rourke watched as the Velthari dreadnought disintegrated in the distance, its pieces scattering across the void like dying stars. Mira, exhausted but smiling, said, "We did it." Ramos nodded. Against impossible odds, humans did what no one expected. Vance shook his head, disbelief written across his face. "They'll never underestimate us again." Rourke's gaze swept across the fleet. "No, but this isn't just about them. This is about all of humanity. Every colony, every ship, every survivor, they've seen what's possible. The galaxy now knows humans fight, humans endure, humans never surrender." Across the galaxy, transmissions surged. Colonies that had been hiding, fleets that had been scattered, miners, smugglers, and soldiers. They all heard the tale of Rourke and the fleet that dared to strike the Velthari flagships. Rourke's message was clear. Asterisk, asterisk, we are humans. We endure. We resist. We strike back. And we never surrender. Asterisk, asterisk. In the aftermath of the battle, the Velthari retreated, stunned and shaken. Their dreadnoughts scattered, their patrols disrupted, their perception of humans forever changed. Rourke looked at his crew, bruised and battered but alive. This is just the beginning. The galaxy will remember today, and every system that tries to challenge us will learn the same lesson. Humans never surrender. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and humanity, united and unbroken, burned brighter than ever.